Hi, how's everyone doing? The date today is August 20th, 2013. Now, I want to start a new segment. I want to call it Verse of the Day. Now, today I want to look upon important verses of the Bible. One of those being 1 Corinthians 13, which is known to be the love chapter, but it has more depth to it than people may know. Before going to 1 Corinthians, you'd have to know the author of the book. His name is Paul, and his life is known in Acts chapter 8, I'm pretty sure. He was a murderer of Christians, and on the road to Damascus, where he was intending to kill Christians, Jesus came down from heaven and cast him down, where in turn he was blinded, and Jesus said, "Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And Paul said, "Who are you, Lord?" And Jesus said, "I am Jesus of Nazareth, who you are persecuting." And so Paul goes on, and he's converted, and more likely saved. And he goes on telling people his testimony, his experience of how God saved him. He wrote most of the books in here, and one of his famous books are 1 Corinthians, and it goes into talking about a lot of deal that the Corinthians were going through. The Corinthians have just become new Christians, and there was a lot going on too, because some of them went back to sin. This one guy, he's dating his mother. Other people have become homosexual or transvestite, and so many problems are going on dealing with culture. Other things are theological questions, like who is this Jesus? Has he saved us? Or what is it with spiritual gifts? What is tongues? Like, what is the greatest spiritual gift there? And there's a lot of theological questions answered, and Paul addresses a lot of questions that they have too. Paul didn't use chapters. That wasn't included until later. So where 1 Corinthians 13 starts, chapter 12 just ended, so I want to read a couple verses from there, starting at verse 28. "And God has appointed these in the church: first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, administrations, varieties of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Do all have gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way." What is greater than just gifts? He's saying, like, there is a greater way than seeking gifts. And so he goes into talking about that, starting in verse 1 of the next chapter. "Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal." So, this is New King James Version. It might be a little hard to understand, but he's saying, though I can speak in tongues, meaning either different languages of men or tongues as in the heavenly language to God, but I don't have love to go with it. I'm just making a bunch of noise, like brass being like a brass instrument, a trumpet, for those of you who aren't in band. He goes on, verse 2, making another example. "And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing." So Jesus once said that if you have faith as small as mustard seed, you'd be able to move mountains. That's how great it was. But Paul here, he's talking even in any kind of faith at all, like whatever faith you have. It can be really strong, but if you have no love for God in all honesty. And religion doesn't promote love. It promotes help on the outside. If you don't have any honest love for God, you are nothing. So he's using himself as an example there. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not love, it profits me nothing. So many religions would say that, you feed the poor, you sell your stuff, you give your money, it would satisfy you, it would fulfill you. But that's not true. Without love, it would just be a waste of time. Sacrifice for nothing. So he goes on, and now here's a whole description of love. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. Love is not puffed up. Love does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, and thinks no evil. Love does not rejoice in iniquity, that's sin, but rejoices in the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And then it says love never fails in verse 8. But some of us cannot describe ourselves as he just did here. Love is such a powerful thing, we could never imagine it. I mean, many people are in need of this kind of love, but it's never fully understood. Like, love is first not the thing you want, but first it's the thing you need. He goes on. Of course, love here is described as something perfect, but nobody's perfect. Like, I know I would want to seek all these things in here, but I know I can never be perfect in them, not without God. So yeah, you pursue it, but it would mean nothing if you do not have a relationship with Christ here. So verse 8, love never fails, but whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. So basically what he's saying is, even in the hardest things, love never fails. Like, whether there are prophecies of anything, love is still stronger against that. Whether there's languages that says, like, hatred is better, love still overcomes. And even the knowledge of something that is true in fact, like, people would have, like, there's knowledge that people do not accept God. Love even goes over that. Like, love here is something that overcomes all things. It's something that's really worth fighting for in here. So verse 9 and 10, for we know in part and we've prophesied in part, but when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. So when he's saying we know in part and we prophesy in part, he's talking about God. Like, we know who God is in part, and we even say it in part. But when that which is perfection has come, then, like, all we've done before will be casted away. Like, all of that will not be comparable, will be left out. So it's saying that, God is coming, and only God can be described as perfect. Nobody else can say that. So there's a promise here that God will come someday, and it will be good. It will be great. So now he has a description of himself here. Bear in mind, he's not talking about himself in the physical sense. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put childish things away. So here he's going on talking about like how he's grown, because like he's not talking about the things he did as a child. He's talking about the way he was as a child. Like, it's not what you do that defines you. It's who you are inside that defines the things you do. And who you are inside defines you. So he's going backwards in here. Like, thought impacts understanding, and understanding impacts what you speak. So, all of that has been put away. He's going down all the way to the root. It started on how he thought. And now that he's a man, now that he's changed, now that he's of God, that is all put away. Yeah, we as Christians are meant to grow in God, meant to know Christ. So now verse 12 it's a lot like verse 9 and 10. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know just as I am known. So a mirror that's dim, it's not exactly, you can't see everything, but it's a small picture of everything. Now when he's saying face to face, he means like it will be obvious, it will be upfront. That's what God's glory will come to. And now I know in part, just now I will know just as I am known. Like he is obviously known by God. But there will come a day when he will know God just as obviously. And there's to know about things, and there's to know people. There's to know people